Well, I'm so excited and pleased. You know, as the innovation team and management assistants, you're going to meet our team later today who put this summit together. But as we were talking about innovation, you know, our management assistants are talking about equity. This is the new conversation across the country and in many cities, and of course, our city, which is one of the most diverse cities in the country. How do we couple equity and innovation? Right. This is a big philosophical ideas. How do we ground them and make them reality in Long Beach? And so I'm so proud of our team who put together this panel, and I'm so honored to introduce, and if I mess up your name, I apologize, correct me, and I will say it the right way. Angie Jean Marie is the interim director of LA 2050. She will serve as our moderator. Teresa Chandler, Human Services Bureau Manager, City of Long Beach. John Keisler, Economic Development Director here in the City of Long Beach. Nikki Okuk, founder of Rico Tires. And Susanna Sneum, Executive Director of the United Cambodian Community. I'd like to turn it over to our moderator who's going to walk us through a conversation around civic innovation and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all for being here this morning. I'm really excited for this panel. As I was preparing, I was doing some Googling, and so many articles came up about the amazing work that you all are doing, so I'm really excited to hear from you. So as I'm thinking about this, I feel like there are certain words that are super buzzy these days, and I feel like our panel title hits on all of them: civic, innovation, and equity. And so I wanted to at least kick off this panel with just a point of view, my perspective on what these words mean. And so innovation, I think, is sort of, simply put, applying new models to solve old problems. And sometimes innovation is kind of like what we heard from our keynote speaker: completely new ideas, novel things that are going to blow your mind. But those examples of innovation are actually pretty rare. What we see more often are the application of old strategies, existing strategies, to new contexts and for different purposes. And I think that kind of innovation is impactful, it's important, and I think what we're going to hear from our speakers is a little bit of a mix of both of those strategies. And so civic innovation then is that sort of transformative model for the public good. And then with equity, I feel like there's a lot of sort of discussion of what equity means, but we're going to hear from all of you about what that means to you. But equity isn't just about equality. It's not just about restoring balances. It's about addressing systematic discrimination, biases, and disinvestment in communities that have resulted in the conditions that we see today. And so I feel like sort of approaching this discussion with those things in mind, I'm excited to do. And so we're going to skip formal introductions in favor of just launching into the discussion. And I'd love to hear from each of you guys about the work that you do sort of in brief, and then specifically about how your work sort of works at the intersection of civic innovation and equity. So we can start with you, Susanna.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Susanna Siem. I'm the Executive Director of United Cambodian Community. And United Cambodian Community promotes and advocates for the well-being and advancement of the Cambodian community here in the greater Long Beach area. So if none of you are new to Long Beach, if you're new to Long Beach, then you should know that Long Beach has the largest Cambodian population in the nation outside of Cambodia. And we have a particular location in central Long Beach called Cambodia Town. Back in the 1980s, over 300,000 Cambodian refugees immigrated here to the United States, and majority of them settled here in Long Beach because there was already a small population of Cambodian students studying here at Cal State Long Beach. And for us here at UCC, we've been serving the community for 40 years. And we really focused on immigrant integration. In the very beginning, it was more about the immediate needs of being able to have people placed into shelter, and then be able to understand the culture here in Long Beach. But as our community has grown, what we see is that the Cambodian community is often put into the larger Asian population. And what we do at UCC is that we demystify the Asian model minority myth, in which Asians are seen as super successful in economics and also in schools. But what we see in the Southeast Asian community, because our immigration story is a lot different than other East Asian communities, is that we have higher disparities when it comes to poverty and crime. Within the Cambodian community itself, what we see is that 52% of our Cambodian adults only have high school degrees, and only 16% of them have college degrees. And what we also see is that the Cambodian community has high disparities when it comes to health. We have high chronic health conditions. When you look at Cambodian adults, over 49% have 5 or more chronic conditions, and that includes mental health conditions. Within the Cambodian community, 62% of our adults have PTSD and 52% have depression. And what we're seeing is that this compounded trauma that came from the genocide and also immigrating here to the United States into high poverty areas has caused this trauma to be given to our next generation. And so what we're seeing right now is that 1 out of 2 young adults and our young people have depression symptoms also. And so what we see here in Long Beach is that the Cambodian community continues to have these disparities when it comes to health and mental health. And what UCC is doing is being able to bring in culturally defined practices into these mental health and health strategies, and also being able to bring the Cambodian perspective when it comes to economic development. And we can definitely go into that later on into our discussion.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nikki Okuk, and I am the founder, owner, and operator of RCO Tires. I feel like we're kind of the new kid on the block here. We're only 5 years old, and we relocated here to Long Beach about 3 years ago. We're in the northern sort of Long Beach, Compton industrial zone there. And our business revolves really around servicing this huge hub, the port and the transportation and the trucks that are going in and out of this area and servicing the entire country. What we do is we recycle truck tires. We make all kinds of crazy things. We make bumpers, bases for traffic barrels and things like that. And all of those things are very unique, actually. It sounds strange, but it was all product innovation that was done right here. And the second part of our business is really employing from underemployed communities. So most of the people, the 14, 15 guys that are there at our shop every day, recycling the truck tires that come out of the port, are folks who are formerly incarcerated or formerly houseless, facing immigration issues and things like that. So we didn't necessarily begin our business as a social enterprise, which is what we're described as now. We really did get into business to make money. And the mission, and I think what drives us and motivates us, has definitely changed over the last few years as we've become more engaged in our community and more involved with our employees. And so a long-term vision for RCO is really more about fostering more small businesses, using our small business as a hub to inspire and enable other entrepreneurs to create businesses around ours. We've already had some success in that with truck driving and welding and other things. When I moved back to the U.S. and decided that I wanted to start a business here, there were so many things that attracted me to the area, including the fact that this is the world's point of greatest ethnic diversity. And I feel like the community that we've built around ourselves and our vision for creating local small business ownership and entrepreneurship is really just fulfilling so much bigger life goal for myself than just recycling tires. Though I am very proud of what we've done recycling tires. It's diverted 30 million gallons of oil from local landfills, and we've also diverted 130 million pounds of rubber into new products so far.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Teresa Chandler, and I oversee the Human Services Bureau in the Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of Health and Human Services is broken down into 6 bureaus, and the Human Services Bureau encompasses the Homeless Services Division and the Community Impact Division. So the City of Long Beach has our own continuum of care for our homeless services. So there's a lot of terms that I will try not to throw out because you probably don't know what they are. But what that means is, as a jurisdiction or as a city, we apply directly to HUD every year to receive funding for our homeless services. Whereas there are 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles, There are 3 cities that have our own continuum of care, which means we apply directly to get those funding, to get those funds, excuse me. And then LASA, which is a Los Angeles combination of city and county, has the other 85 cities. So it gives us a lot of leeway and I guess we get to make a lot of our own decisions based on our local need regarding homeless services. And then also under the Community Impact Division is our city's violence prevention plan and our Center for Families and Youth. So those are the programs that focus on our youth and children, working directly with DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, another acronym that I'm throwing out. And so as a city, we really have a unique opportunity. We also have our own health department. So I don't know if you're aware that there are 3 cities in the state of California that have our own health department. Other cities work with the local county. So we get to work directly with all of our departments to focus on the needs of the city. There are disparities across the city. I don't know if you're aware, but we've got several zip codes. Across our zip codes, there's about a 7-year life discrepancy. So from one zip code in West or North Long Beach compared to East, we can look at the life discrepancy. And so that really helps us to focus on what the needs are in each of those zip codes and address the needs accordingly. So if we talk about the definition of equity, we really need to start there. It's pretty simple. The numbers don't lie. We look at the data, and we really have to dig in deep to what's happening across the city. And it just is what it is. So if we look at our resource distribution, part of what I get to do and enjoy doing every day with my team in the health department, with our director, Kelly Colopy, is really focus on those disparities and looking through a health lens, but also an equity lens. The health department also just opened the Office of Equity, which opened in January of this year. And that's really digging deep into our structures and our systems and like the school district and the police department and our fire department, all of our wonderful departments that keep our city going. But let's dig deep into how we can make sure that resources are distributed equally throughout the city. And under the Human Services umbrella, I get to really dig deep into that. So.
Well, good morning. And congratulations to Tracy and the team for pulling this together, our 2nd annual Civic and Innovation Summit. And this location is absolutely fantastic because we not only get to talk about Long Beach, but we get to look out on it. We get to see a lot of the different neighborhoods and economic clusters throughout the city. And so for me, every single day as we think about how we can create economic opportunity for our workers, our investors, and our entrepreneurs in the city, I think this is a really good view of what's going on out there and where those opportunities are. My name is John Keisler. I'm the Economic Development Director. We're one of the newest departments in the city of Long Beach. In fact, for about 10 years there, we didn't have a community development or economic development department. And so under the leadership of Mayor Robert Garcia, our city council, we reconstituted our investment in economic development just a couple years ago and formed the Economic Development Department for the city. We report to the city manager. We're in the city structure, and we have a number of different programs. And so primarily, we have a workforce development bureau, which is actually Pacific Gateway. It's a workforce investment network recognized by the federal government. We use Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding to provide workers with transitional training, connect them with employers, as well as helping our employers, our local businesses, to find the workforce that they need so that they can grow and be successful. And we have some of our staff members like Lucius here today who spends their time reaching out to our local industry and businesses to find out, hey, what is it that you need to be successful from a workforce standpoint, and how can we provide the programs that get people in that pipeline to connect them with opportunity. The second area that we focus on in economic development is called real estate and property development. And so as you look outside and you see these 4 cranes that are up right now with more coming, that's an example of selling city property. Most of these are former surface parking lots that were purchased years ago by the redevelopment agency. And now out of the 260 properties we own, about 150 of those have been sold. We have many, many more that we are going to retain for government use and for other purposes. But as we've sold off these properties in our department, and working with our development services department, the private sector will come in and build housing, both affordable and market rate, as well as some of the other uses that we see. We also manage the properties, the city assets like the Queen Mary, the Convention Center, the aquarium, and all of the different city-owned properties that are in Long Beach. And then finally, the third area where we focus is what we call business development. So how do we help entrepreneurs and small businesses to get started in the city, to find opportunity, whether it's a site, a location where they want to move or build, or it could be the example of connecting them with workforce. And so we use small business loans. We use federal money to help create our revolving loan funds. We're launching some new initiatives to help with access to capital, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, to help improve the equity and representation of our immigrant, minority, and women-owned business in the city. But essentially, those are the three major areas where we think people make money. And I'll finish with this. One of the big initiatives that we are in the middle of and embarked this year, we have at least one of our economic development commissioners, Walter Larkins, here. And so the mayor had asked, he's in the back, standing room only, and he's a tall guy, so he needs, you don't want to stand behind him. But the mayor had asked that the Economic Development Commission craft a blueprint for economic development. The mayor said, hey, look, the world's changing economically. We heard a lot of this from Dan about, how space is changing and how the markets are changing. And a lot of that is being driven by information technology. I mean, all this, the connectivity and communications infrastructure is creating all kinds of new economic opportunities for people. And if you're connected, you're good. If you're not connected, the gap's going to get even wider. So our mayor said, hey, Commission, what do we need to do to position our city, position Long Beach and our residents to be economically competitive in this new information service-based, advanced manufacturing type economy? And so for 26 community meetings, our commissioners bravely went out and talked to panels of developers and entrepreneurs and creatives in many different sectors, housing and community advocates. And they came up with something called the Economic Development Blueprint. Now, there's a lot in there, and it's a very high level, about a 12-page document that says, hey, this is just generally what we heard from the community. And then we had people like Dr. Robert Kleinhens, who's here, and Beacon Economics to help us with the data, to look at employment development department data to say, hey, what's been going on for the past couple of years with employers and employees? What are the trends? Where are the opportunities? And then we were able to categorize or break the 82 recommendations down into about 7 key focus areas. What's exciting about that is that one of the key areas that started to emerge over and over again in the data, as well as in the community, was this issue about economic inclusion. And so I'm proud to say, and I think that the commission and the council, we have your traditional development environment, business assistance, the sort of the traditional go-to economic development department areas of lines of business. But then there's this issue of economic inclusion that emerged and is now sort of gravitated to the front that cuts across every different sector. Every single industry is asking questions. Every single geographic region, every city is asking. So how do we plug as many people, many of our residents, into the economy in a meaningful way? And how do we meet them where they are and get them the support that they need so that they can compete? And ultimately, a connected community where everybody's in is going to be a much more vibrant, dynamic, and powerful economy for a city, particularly like Long Beach. So we'll talk a little bit more about the economic inclusion focus area as we move into the discussion, but that's an area where we're extremely excited. Our commission is excited. We just, council just launched a few initiatives last Tuesday night to really get us going. But the blueprint, when I use that terminology, that's the 10-year economic development strategic plan, and we'll unpack that a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you all. Just to get a sense of who's in the room, who here works in government? Raise your hand. Lots of you. In private sector? Okay. Community-based organizations, nonprofits? Sweet. So given that, the prevailing majority of you work in government, I'd love to hear from Teresa and from John about what some specific projects that you've worked on that kind of challenge the status quo of how you've done your work before in the past and are sort of applying these transformative models to change things in Long Beach with an equity lens. Teresa, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. So I'll start with our homeless work because that's been a challenge. As a county, we all know that homelessness is growing, right? Throughout the county, our numbers are going up, throughout the state, throughout the nation. We're in a housing crisis right now, and folks just can't lease up. And in Long Beach specifically, there's a 2% vacancy rate, so it's even worse. So folks that are walking around with vouchers in Section 8 are in competition with folks that aren't using vouchers, and a lot of our landlords, it's easier to not work with the Section 8, and so we're making a call to action, and we've been working closely with our city representatives and our government partners to reach out to the community to make sure that we can get folks into housing, because that's really what homelessness is about. It's not about there's a lot of layers and factors to homelessness, but that's really what it calls for, and of all of us coming together. So that's really important. Another thing is the way that we reach out to our community members that are experiencing homelessness. I think Long Beach, definitely, not I think, but I know that Long Beach has a very unique outreach network that we have an interdepartmental team, so we work so close with our police department, our fire department, public works, parks and recs, the libraries, and we come together monthly to talk about how we can outreach. And so this network, we have the quality of life officers who are part of the police department in partnership with a Department of Mental Health clinician. And then also our HEART team, which is an innovative group that it was a pilot program last year, and now it's been funded for this coming year, which are 2 paramedics that also go out, and they're not directly linked to the 911 system, but they are going out with our outreach network so that a lot of times our homeless folks are high utilizers of the system. They're coming in to the emergency rooms to get basic services and basic health care. And so that's definitely how we're handling that. And so I can say that our outreach network, they cover the 52 square miles of Long Beach on a regular, every day on a regular basis. And we can pretty much name everybody. They know everybody by name. So that's really developing and building those relationships with folks. Sometimes it takes one contact to get someone to come in, and sometimes it takes 5 years of contact because not everybody is ready, because everybody's story is different. And so we're looking at the challenges with our mental health. So that's a huge issue that we're facing. And then also substance abuse. And we don't have a lot of resources for folks to get folks in. We work directly with the county for those resources, but it's always about how we can leverage those partnerships. So building partnerships, building the capacity within the city, but it's not just the city, it has to be our community. And then everybody willing to step in. And what does that look like to really help? So we've called to action. We had a summit in the spring, a homeless summit, and then we also had a faith-based summit. So bringing together our faith-based organizations also, how can they help? How can we all get involved? So I think that's an example.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so going back to this idea about the mission, this is something that we talk about every day in our department is, we're here to help create economic opportunities for workers, investors, and entrepreneurs. Those are the 3 ways that we found out most people make their money. They either work for somebody else, they work for themselves as a small business owner or business owner, or they invest in other people's projects. That could be real estate, equities, whatever, investing, venture capital. And so simplifying things, we don't necessarily think of ourselves as the city or as government on a day-to-day basis. We really think of ourselves as how do we facilitate helping these 3 groups of people make more money? Because that's what an economic development department should do. It should help people make more money. If you're a worker, you call us, you should be making more money a year from now than you are today. If you're an entrepreneur, small business, you want to grow, we might help you with a loan, but the real test of that program success is that you're making more money a year from now than you did before you met us. So first of all, I think getting sort of that label or that sense of who you are as government out of the way is an important first step. You're a problem solver, you're a facilitator. And the second thing is Teresa's hit on it 3 or 4 times in her examples, is that you don't have to solve people's problems. It's not the government that necessarily is going to create the program, pay for the program, do the work, or provide the solution. In fact, in most cases, when it comes to innovation and equity, it's absolutely not going to be the city. You're going, by meeting users, workers, investors, and entrepreneurs where they are. You said some people are ready to go today, some people are ready to go in 5 years. You meet them where they are, you understand their experience, and through that process, you identify the partners who are in the community, the champions who understand and connect with those individuals. And through partnerships, you're able to identify unique and new ideas and solutions and perspectives that you would never consider inside the conference room of City Hall. So some of the cool projects that have popped up as a result of this strategy, what we call, I've learned from Heather Barker at Cal State Long Beach, the art college, the design school, is design thinking. You go out in the field, you meet the users where they are, and you start to learn about their experience. What has happened is that we have come on a couple of programs recently that I'm really excited about, that highlight the power of just trying to solve a problem, no matter who delivers the service and who runs the program. But that government can be an excellent facilitator of partnerships. So one example that we just launched this last week is a micro lending program. So we had heard in our research and our outreach with small businesses, particularly those entrepreneurs that don't have friends and family with a lot of money. And that's a lot of our underrepresented entrepreneurs. These are people who don't come from families of wealth. So the number one way that most people start their businesses financially is that they go to friends and family, or they use their credit cards. And that's not always the best way to start your business. But that's usually where people start. So people who don't have wealthy networks of friends and family often find it's very, very difficult to get that first $10,000. People who don't have credit history or revenue history find it hard to get a loan from a traditional commercial bank or to even get a credit card. So in exploring the solutions that were out there, government's traditional, we talked about, we've got a revolving loan fund. What could we do with our existing funds, yada, yada, yada. And as we started to explore these solutions, we realized that, hey, there's technology out there that can manage this for us. There is a nonprofit, in this case it's Kiva, that actually has done $1 billion worth of microloans across the world. And guess what? There's nonprofits out there, like in this case LISC, which is a regional CDFI, a community development financial institution, who could help actually set this up for us. And all we need to do is find out some money. Well, guess what? There's a local foundation that believes in entrepreneurship who wants to pay for that. So by connecting these different individuals with each other, these organizations, the vice mayor last week on behalf of the council announced that, hey, we're charging full steam ahead. And look how little the city actually needed to do to get this program, to start working on a solution for micro lending. Now, here's the cool part. Where does the money come from? Who is going to lend this money? And what about all this risk? These are poor people who have never paid a loan back. Well, guess what? The money comes from the community. And the lenders are actually the people in the community who lend $25, $50, $100 at a time. In fact, I'm a lender. I got my first repayment yesterday as well. And I loaned $25 to this woman, Jennifer, who's trying to buy her first commercial sewing machine and her first inventory of fabric to get her business going. And my $25 will be repaid over 18 months. So I got my first $1.40 back, monthly payment, and it goes back into Kiva, which is managing the whole thing, gives me updates. It's now saying, do you want to relend that money to somebody else? And I said, sure. 97% repayment rate, and all of the principal loan funds are not coming from the city or the SBA or the EDA or some of these other companies. It's actually coming from your community, from the people who want to do something small to help small businesses and who believe in economic inclusion and equity, but don't know how to do it. Now we're giving them a choice. And so we're starting down this path. We got a foundation to fund a nonprofit to help us set it up. We're also now seeking lenders and trustees and we'll eventually borrowers and all that. But you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to solve all these problems. In fact, by getting out there, finding out a need, and then sometimes acting government as facilitator rather than regulator or problem solver, there might be money and resources and capacity and expertise that exists already, and it's just bringing those things together to solve a problem for somebody. So that would be one example of an innovative way to get something done without having to build a big, massive program within City Hall. And so stay tuned, and I want everybody in this room to become a lender. It's super fun. You get to follow the business plan. You get to see the entrepreneur launch, 97% repayment rate, so then you can recycle your loan to somebody else. That's true community and economic development.
Awesome.
Great.
And Susanna, in your initial sort of opening remarks, you talked about culturally defined strategies. And Nikki, you mentioned the work that you do in helping to support the folks that work with you to explore their own sort of businesses. So I want to ask the both of you, how do you approach the work of bringing in marginalized communities and approaching innovation in a way that's inclusive and representative of those community voices? And then I want to tag on a second question is, so once you've done that, how do you work with government agencies, with other institutions, in order to help them open up the doors to support the work that you and the communities that you work with want to see implemented?
Okay, I'll try to answer
I'm
all
sorry.
of that. Well, with UCC, one of the things that we have spearheaded is that we are the lead convener of the Cambodian Advocacy Collaborative. So it's a collaborative among the 5 largest Cambodian service agencies here in Long Beach, which includes UCC, Cambodian Association of America, Khmer Girls in Action, Khmer Parents Association, and Families in Good Health. And we've been in a formal partnership for the past 5 years, and we've done large listening sessions with our community. And this year, because there isn't disaggregated data within the Cambodian community here in Long Beach, we decided to take that upon ourselves. And so we conducted our own Cambodian Community Needs Assessment in partnership with Cal State Long Beach, and we had over 220 Cambodian residents participate in the survey, and we had 50 residents participate in a focus group. And right now we're analyzing the data. We're going to be issuing out a executive summary in the beginning of December, so you'll be all invited to that event. But what we're seeing within that community needs is that economic development continues to be a huge need within the Cambodian community. And within Long Beach itself, there's no one agency that is serving the Cambodian community when it comes to economic development. And so that's where UCC has stepped up in our leadership to provide that opportunity for our community members and offer it in Khmer, which is the language that Cambodian community members use, and connect to strategic partnerships, which includes the City of Long Beach, specifically with Pacific Gateway. And one of the ways that we've started to do that is that we provided youth development within our workforce development program. And what's unique about our specific program is that we integrate the value of family within our youth development work. And we do a cohort-based model. And so we bring 10 youth together, and they go through the training with each other. And in the very beginning, we have them go through a soft skills training, which essentially is a 2-week-long retreat in which they build relationships with one another, build that commitment to one another, and see each other as family, and see UCC and our staff as family, and that we're here to support them. Because many of them don't have other family members that are encouraging them, and we provide that feedback and that accountability. I'm happy to also say that we are expanding our program to English learners and working with adults now. And so we're working with Pacific Gateway, and also Central Cha is helping with the Latino community here in Long Beach. We're looking forward to ways that we can connect English learners to not only workforce development, but also to LBCC and their ESL classes there, and the Long Beach Adult School and the ESL classes there. And so we're going to provide navigation services and also just break down what these pathways look like for our community members to help increase their skills and in English and also in the workforce. Another program that we have started is that within Cambodia Town, they've been designated as Cambodia Town for the past 10 years. And just recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, the city created the Midtown Business Improvement District, in which now there are assessment fees that are being invested back into Cambodia Town, into the small businesses that are there. And so in Cambodia Town itself, there are Cambodia-owned businesses, but also Latino-owned businesses. And so we're doing the work of really bringing us together and uniting the businesses together and building the relationship of supporting one another. UCC has opened up a business center in which we are having a business navigator walk alongside these small businesses and educate them about the opportunities that are connected through the city of Long Beach, small business loans, educating them about marketing and what they can do to grow their businesses. One of the great things and strengths about the Cambodian community is that entrepreneurship has been a huge part of how we thrive here in Long Beach. Back in the 1980s, someone opened a donut shop. And since then, this owner has brought these tools to other Cambodian families. And so if you go to visit any donut shop here in Long Beach or the greater Long Beach area, it's probably owned by a Cambodian family. And that's a model that we want to continue to do. Yes. And so we have those skills. It's just connecting the Cambodian community to these greater capacities that are not in the network within the Cambodian community. And so that's why we partner with the city of Long Beach, and that's why we're partnering with other businesses and other nonprofits that provide small business loans to our community, because we have those skills. These are the seeds that are in our community. They just need some watering and some growth and some nurturing, and we can continue to grow from there.
Let's see. So as I mentioned before, we hadn't necessarily started RCO with the mission of being a social enterprise. But very quickly we learned that the need was there. I think one of our first employees was probably down at the probation officer and just sort of put the word out, hey, there's this tire recycling company in North Long Beach that doesn't do background checks. And before I knew it, my door was being banged down by people that really wanted to work. And so it's been interesting because at first I said, I have this open door policy. If any of you guys want to come in here and talk to me about, starting your own little trucking company, starting your own little welding company, I've been through the ringer. I know what it is to try to finance and bootstrap a company with absolutely no wealthy friends or family. And it's very difficult to get that first funding and to get going and to get, navigate the permitting process and things like that. So a few people did come in and take me up on my offer, but I also realized that I had to meet a lot of people where they were at. We had folks that came in that were interested, but they had to work on their personal credit first, or really even just had to stabilize their housing situation first, or reunite their families sometimes. And I feel like I've gotten a sort of a crash course in social work through this process because we've done all of those things, sitting down with people and showing them how to open up their first credit cards, navigating them to resources like Kiva and Jewish Free Loan Association and other ways that you can finance a small business when you don't have much. And I realized also in the process that while I was saying this to them, I wasn't taking my own advice. Which is to reach out and look for other people that had those resources to help us. I think that there's a tendency as small business owners to kind of avoid interacting too much with the government, to sort of try to just stay in your lane and hopefully not get caught doing something that you didn't even know you were doing wrong. And I thought, okay, this isn't the right way to do it. I better go out and ask for help. And so I really started knocking on the doors of like my representatives and my local community resources and local government officials. And the amount of support that I got was incredible. So thank you to all of you here. I'm sure there's a few. Everything from helping us, find our real estate or secure funding, navigating permitting processes, and then also finding resources for my employees so that I didn't necessarily have to do everything myself. So it's actually been a really wonderful collaborative relationship that we've had with our local government officials that I didn't necessarily expect it to be that way. It was a very pleasant surprise. And I think that as far as innovation, I've been very pleasantly surprised to find that there were so many people working within government agencies that really did want to think about new strategies. I think that small businesses have a tendency to think of the government as sort of this monolith that's very static and unchanging. The rules are what they are, and you must abide by them to the letter, and that everybody that's working there is an enforcer, right? And it hasn't been that way at all. In fact, very often I was able to enter into conversations and say, hey, these are our needs. And folks went out of their way to find resources and access points and ways that programs could be created or changed in order to really serve the needs of our community. So overall, it's been an excellent experience, and I know that we can do more of it. I know we can do more of it. Because sometimes you do hit a wall and they say, well, it just doesn't work like that. But we have to be willing as business owners and as community members and as government workers to sort of say, well, why not? Like, why couldn't we just do it some other kind of way than we've done it in the past? I mean, recycling, the industry that I, for some reason, chose to be in, is very highly regulated. It's a very highly regulated industry. And there's lots of penalties associated with not, conducting your business correctly. But we can challenge ourselves to think about what the end goals are and new ways to sort of arrive there that maybe we haven't thought of in the past. And that's really been a lot of our mission at RCO, is just to do something different than the way it's been done before. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, and I know we want to leave some time for questions. I'm going to ask one last question, and maybe limit your responses to 15 to 30 seconds. But where do you find inspiration in the civic innovation realm? Like, where are you looking around the region within Long Beach and seeing sort of that next wave of really creative work happening on the issues that you guys are addressing?
Sure. So, I think one of the areas that is really exciting for government, and I think Tracy can relate to this, is the world of art. And I mentioned Heather. I mentioned the art college and design, and I think that a place that we can all look to get the strategies and to implement a process which will open our eyes to new and exciting opportunities is by connecting with your university. Connect with your art college. We've got incredible creative economy in Southern California. In fact, 420,000 or so jobs, Robert knows this, in the creative economy. It's the center of the world for the creative economy, Southern California. And we have Otis and Pasadena Art College and Cal State Long Beach, graduating 500 designers a year. But as government, I'm really looking at the way that they train user experience, the way that they train design thinking, and to use a different process. You can talk to the same people, and you can look at the same resources that have always been around you in a completely different way if you use a different process and a different lens. So I would suggest us, I was a master's of public administration, went to a public policy school, and we used surveys, and we would generally look for insights. Well, what does the majority say? And the majority need this and that. And the designers said, like Harrison in here, who's totally nuts because he's an industrial designer, he said, well, what about the extreme case? What about the 1%? And if we can design a solution for the 1%, why won't it work for the middle majority? And that's like turning public policy on its head, because usually we do polls and surveys and we say, well, that's where the greatest opportunity is. So I would suggest to you, in terms of inspiration, is number one, try a different approach. Borrow an approach from a different industry or sector. Computer science, blown my mind in terms of how logical they have to be in terms of programming. It's very helpful. It's very, very helpful to implement a new framework to an existing industry. And then secondly, you have got to know your users. You have got to spend time out there with your users, understanding their challenges and mapping their experience. All kinds of creative, exciting insights will come from that. And then lastly, the solutions are all around us. I mean, look at the most exciting example this morning in terms of Virgin Orbit. They're using an existing technology, actually multiple existing technologies, but they're repackaging them in a new way. And one of the most innovative things is, how do we use these old 747s or 777s? What can we do with them? Because they can get up and down anywhere in the world, and they can pick up rockets, which we have. We just need to refine the model. But let's look at what we've already got. It doesn't have to be some crazy cool idea. It could be just repackaging and reusing what we already have available to us. So those are the kind of the three things I would offer.
You know how to stretch 30 seconds, John.
I know. I'll keep mine shorter. But I absolutely agree with what John is saying, so I'll just say that. But I run youth and family programs and homeless programs and things like that. So I am not the expert. The community that I'm working with, they're the experts. So that's where I get my passion and drive from, is like the 5-year-olds and the families that I'm working with. Let's sit down on the floor and be creative and figure something out. Or the youth services network, or the youth program, or the youth board that we want to create. We're starting to develop with the violence prevention team. And let the youth drive it. Let the youth drive the work. What's going to work for you? What keeps you off the streets? What keeps you resilient and successful in school? And what keeps you going back to school? So let's focus on that. It's very easy to continue to focus on what's not working and what's broken and the systems that aren't working and what's falling apart and the violence that's happening. But Long Beach has a lot of beauty and art and fabulous things that are happening here. And so my goal with my amazing team that I get to work with every day is to open the door to that. What's happening in Long Beach already, what's beautiful, and how do we build from there? Because there's a lot that's happening already. We don't have to reinvent any wheels. It's basically doing something different, as John was speaking to, and figuring out, being creative, taking risks, hiring people onto your teams that have different opinions. And then open a space for them to have those different opinions and share them, and then come to compromises and conclusions together, along with the community that we're working with.
So for me, I take a lot of, is this working? Yes, I take a lot of inspiration from the guys that I work with. Part of our practice at RCO has been a lot about creating sort of dignified, democratic workplaces. So when we get to the point of decision making about, you know, how are we going to arrange this new manufacturing line, or how are we going to change our schedules, we sit down as a big group and we talk it out. And it's actually been really interesting to watch and learn from them as they develop sort of their own systems that work much better because they actually physically do the job. And so when I listen to these folks up here that are saying we're listening to our community, we're listening to our community, we're listening, that's really what we all have to do, right? So we have to listen to our users. And so that's been a part of our growth process, is trying to create democratic workplaces through that process. And then I was also so inspired listening to Virgin talk about how the access to technology is going to change this, because if I can bring in a monitor and I show the guys at my workplace more about, say, the tire manufacturing process or the tire recycling process, immediately lights start going off, right? Because these guys touch these tires every day. They know exactly what they're like. And all it really took was a little bit of information from the outside getting to them. And so creating access points for innovation, for people to like sort of access resources, ideas, and a space to then discuss it and develop it, has completely changed the way that we do business. And so that's sort of who I take my inspiration from.
My inspiration definitely comes from participating in multicultural spaces. And one of the ways that we do that here in Long Beach is through the Building Healthy Communities Long Beach different coalition work that we do. And so we have coalition work that's around education, around land use, around language access, around local hire. And in these spaces, there's multiple languages that are speaking. There's Khmer, Spanish, English, Tagalog, and we're all listening to one another and sharing ideas. And within these spaces, we make decision making together. One of the things that I really appreciated these past years is different processes that bring our community into higher decision-making levels, such as the participatory budgeting process, and also the People's Planning School, and teaching our residents on, okay, here are the structures that really shape our environment, and here are tools that you can learn how you can influence that and lift up your voice and in shaping what that looks like. And so for me, being able to see my Cambodian community members, my older Cambodian seniors that are at city council meetings that are speaking up in Khmer about their experiences in accessing resources in the city and advocating for different signs in Khmer. That really inspires me, and that really inspires me when they're working together. The Cambodian community is working together with the Latino community, and that we have these shared experiences and shared understanding of this is a good decision that is working towards the greater good of our community.
Awesome, thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions. I think the mics are going to come around the room, but does anyone want to ask anything of our panelists? Come on, people. Yes.
Hi, this has been amazing. My name is Michelle. I'm representing the Grant Neighborhood Association, the Long Beach Grocery Co-op, a new startup here in Long Beach, and a couple other things, but I'm really, really glad I'm here. Are there specific community liaisons through the departments that serve the small business that just in speaking in that there wasn't a specific person for the Cambodian community, that made me start thinking about why not? Why is there not, since that's, in the United States, that's large, So anyway, that's my question.
Yeah, no, excellent question. So just in terms of the way that we approach that right now, first and foremost in our business development line of business, we have a business development officer, Saeed Jalali, who many people have been touched over the years or come in contact with Saeed, who coordinates and is our first line of contact. And then we also have, for many years, our business improvement districts are one of those, community-based touch points. These are nonprofits. There's 10 of them in the city. They operate the property-based and merchant-based business improvement districts that are established by the city council, but managed by the nonprofits. And we were talking about the assessment fee in the Midtown bid. Mono is here, right back here in the back. And really, the executive directors of these business improvement districts are. For their membership, for thousands of businesses in the city, the first line of contact. We're trying to supplement that now by introducing business navigators. And so one of the first ones, Susanna stepped up, and UCC is funded, and we're working with the business navigator at UCC to be trained in everything from BizPort, which is our online navigator, to any of the information that these business owners, particularly in Midtown, would need for small business loans and other resources in Khmer. And so we're sort of piloting this model to understand what they need, how to be successful, and to develop that model so that we have more community champions that know the community, that look like the community, speak like the community, and understand that experience. And that way we also improve the feedback loop to learn about those needs so that we can adjust our programs accordingly. And the last piece would be what Lucius does in terms of business outreach. And that's more of a workforce-focused effort to find out what kinds of skill sets are needed, and then to think critically about how can I help your business, either hiring or training, or how can I leverage some federal funds to help your business to get the workforce it needs from the community. So we do it in a couple of different ways.
My question, I think, is for John. My name is Anita Thinkable. I have a nonprofit, Local Choices for Global Respect. My question is primarily for John, but I want to thank the other three panelists. I first heard Susanna? I first heard about the work that she did a year ago when she spoke to her Kiwanis group. I was just amazed that such a petite little young lady can do so much in such an synergistic way to help so many people. And I'll use that kind of as a springboard as an piggyback on this lady's question about liaisons. My question is like John and maybe Teresa working on something where we can be the change we want to see in America? I thank, where's Tracy? Tracy, for the leadership that she's done in violence prevention. I remember hearing a comment that at one point when she was presenting Tracy's program to the city council, that we want to be the model that the rest of our country uses. So my question is, is there any effort, John, or anyone that speak to this, where we have Teresa representing health and homelessness, and then we have Nikki and Suzanne, Nikki representing a business, Suzanne representing an ethnic organization. If we're the most ethnic community, can we use ourselves as a model that we have to use that promotes whatever we do, it will do no harm? I don't know why they limit the oath of Hippocrates to doctors. I think it should be all to all of us. Can we use ourselves as a model city that the rest of the country follows?
Well, yeah. That's a simple answer, of course. I think there's a lot we can do. I know for us, working with I keep repeating myself, but working with the community is so inspiring, and that's how we can't do the work without doing that. What I know we can do better at is talking about what we do, right? So we get stuck in doing the work every day, and running the programs and working with the clients and getting things done, but we don't talk about it. So as a city, we can promote that. As a region, as a county, I think we can do better at promoting ourselves and talking about the work that's coming out of Long Beach and the innovation that we have here. And that's one of my goals as a manager. I have to be at that 10,000-foot level, and that's one of my goals that I'm aspiring towards, is to make sure that we're marketing ourselves and talking about how we're doing it. I'm not that great at social media. I think I just missed that generation, kind of. But a lot of my team is really great at it, so I think there's ways that we can get the word out, but it's about talking about it and moving it in that way.
And one other idea I'll have to offer is that our mayor, Robert Garcia, has done a phenomenal job of leveraging our commissions. So every single person in this room, particularly if you're a resident of Long Beach, you want to get involved. I have learned a tremendous amount from our Economic Development Commission, as an example. They represent different sectors or segments of our local economy. They're subject matter experts. They're practitioners. They're not government people. But having that relationship, I wouldn't have these relationships if the mayor hadn't appointed these people, and not just as residents connecting and learning about each other, and they all love Long Beach, but they also represent opportunities for us to understand through the perspective of the user. What is it like for the commercial broker or for the entrepreneur who is struggling to start their business? That is a way that you can become involved and represent these different interests in the community. It's a great, as I said, feedback loop for us to hear about the different perspectives that don't come up through the traditional path within City Hall. And then if used properly, I think if leveraged properly, this economic development blueprint, we are getting calls from all over the country because this wasn't written by a consultant. This wasn't written, by a fancy management consulting firm who in their own words, and it didn't copy anybody else's plan out there. This was written based on the comments from 26 community meetings. We had to eliminate some redundancies. We had to categorize some stuff. But at the end of the day, we get a lot of energy and ownership from our commission and our community members who are now becoming the community champions of these initiatives because it's their words. And so I'd offer you that again as a process by which you can get involved, but also any organization can leverage. It takes a lot of time and energy and listening, but at the same time, on both sides, I think that's where communities are built.
I think I have the microphone. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Suzdai Sabai to the Kamai community. I just wanted to say that you have a ton of data geeks and algorithm geeks like me who want to contribute. And whether you're a nonprofit or a government agency or a for-profit, we would love to build our community because we love Long Beach and we want to make it better. So as John, my friend, said, include the art community and include the designers, but include the geeks like me, too.
One last question.
Well, I actually kind of almost wanted to echo the gentleman over there. I'm a starting entrepreneur. I have over 25 years in corporate IT, enterprise IT business, and I traveled all over North America working on Fortune 100 companies' projects, but eventually I kind of got disillusioned, and I noticed that this whole digital economy in transition to digital kind of leaves local neighborhoods in many American cities kind of untouched, and there is some struggle. And I'm coming with the premise that this global and digital and these transformations have to happen on the local level. So my question is, where can we start? How, like an entrepreneur like me, maybe the gentleman over there, how can we work with the city, and who we have to work with, bringing projects, ideas, products ideas, and actually plans, actual business plans where we want to engage the local talents. My daughter is school shopping, so we're going in Long Beach. I'm a resident in District 5, so we're school shopping right now, and I see this incredible talent in high schools. And I'm like, these guys can be our resources. We don't need to outsource anywhere. These are the people that we need to nourish. This is going to be their employment basically from high school bench and through the college. So as the city leaders and
absolutely.
What's your advice?
So
Thank you.
I'm going to do this in 15 seconds. So number one, the city has embarked, and I will say this is the leadership of our Chief of Staff, Mark Taylor. This was his vision, to have this Center for Innovation in the city where people like this can go. Young people can find the entrepreneurial ecosystem support they need to start their business. They've got an idea, they're creative, they're an engineer, but they don't know anything about business administration, so they can go and find the capital, the coaching, the mentoring. And so Wade Martin, the new director of the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Cal State Long Beach, is doing just that. Number two, next month, December 12th, I believe, we will be going to council to take a city space that's underutilized, and this was the mayor's vision, and the council member from District 1, Lena Gonzalez, to activate that space as a hub for innovation, and that's in partnership with City College. So we'll be working with them to activate that space as a hub for entrepreneurship and innovation, and the International Business Accelerator will be going there. Number three, I would say, Jeff Ryman is here. The broadband group is assisting the city and the vision of our city leadership to do a high-tech infrastructure master plan. This is our fiber master plan. And what can we do with the 60 miles of city-owned fiber that's currently being used for city facilities and traffic signals? How might we leverage that to connect neighborhoods and incent the private sector to go into places where they traditionally have not provided broadband service? And so Jeff is helping us with this, and council will be receiving a report tonight on how we might roll that out financially and otherwise so that we can use our assets, 60 miles of fiber, use those dark strands to leverage investment and hopefully connect every single household child in the city so that our workers, investors, and entrepreneurs have what they need to be successful. So a number of things. Come talk to me. We've got tons of things going on in different departments, different partners across the city.
Thank you.
So the mayor's here, so I think we have to wrap up. But so this event is part of Long Beach Innovation Month and also Innovate LA, which is a 2-week celebration of innovation around the region. I feel like all of these panelists have shown you in amazing words and with amazing examples about how Long Beach is leading in innovation. And so I want to have you all join me in thanking them for their time and for their contributions. Rock on, keep doing it. So.
And thank you, Angie, for your leadership in the county and all the things you're doing with LA 2050. Just to make a quick plug, LA 2050 is an amazing organization. I highly encourage you to Google them and look at some of the innovative funding opportunities that they have available for nonprofits, government, and local business. So thank you, panelists.